Hello everyone, and this is my review for WWE Monday Night Raw on April 22nd, 2013. Just go off and say right from the get-go, I felt that this week's Raw was actually a fairly entertaining one and just fun to watch in general. Starting right from the get-go, I liked the aspect of having Paul Heyman out there. No introduction needed, no nothing. He was just in the ring, starting to cut a promo saying, oh, Triple H wasn't going to be here this week. He'll answer Brock Lesnar's challenge next week, which eventually actually led to Triple H coming out there. It's a foregone conclusion that Triple H was going to accept the challenge from Brock Lesnar to have a steel cage match. You knew that's where they were going to go. They were going to have at least one more match before this feud was over with. It was just the execution of the promo by Paul Heyman and Triple H itself that actually made it come off as a really good promo in my mind. A good way to actually start off the show. Next that they did was a match with Antonio Cesaro and R-Truth. With R-Truth coming out on top, and this is kind of an unfortunate thing for me. Not saying that the match itself was bad; it was actually a fairly good match in my mind. But it's quite unfortunate for Antonio Cesaro. I always felt like he was very good in his promos, very good with a mic, and excellent with his in-ring work. But it seems as if at this point they're going with him now dropping the U.S. title, and this week with him losing the match to R-Truth. It seems like they're going to start jobbing him out at this point, or not give him a feud in any way, shape, or form. And I do find that to be kind of unfortunate, because maybe just because I am a fan of his work that he's done since being up in the WWE. So hopefully that will change in the future, but it looks like they're going to be starting to job out Antonio Cesaro at this point. Next match that they ended up doing was Brutus Clay and Damien Sandow. For some odd reason, they're still continuing this feud with Damien Sandow, Cody Rhodes, and Sweet Tea or Tensai and Brutus Clay. So I don't really know why they're doing it. The match with Brutus Clay and Damien Sandow, it was an okay match. It wasn't anything special. But both of them are really good in-ring workers, at least in my mind, and especially Damien Sandow. And they pulled off a fairly good match for the time that was given in this case. But once again, I still don't know why the feud's going on, unless they're just trying to drag it out as long as they possibly can. Not sure how much longer it's going to be going. And I do have some notes down here just to make sure I don't really forget anything. The next bit that they actually did was actually a segment with Dolph Ziggler, AJ Lee, and Vicky Guerrero and Brad Maddox, basically saying, Vicky interrupting Dolph Ziggler and AJ, basically saying, oh, if you lose your match with Chris Jericho, he's now going to be in the world title match at Extreme Rules, making it a fatal four-way. Honestly, I felt the segment itself, with the exception of Brad Maddox, who I think is still extremely horrible on microphone or doing anything really. It came off as a good way of giving the match with Chris Jericho and Dolph Ziggler a little bit more meaning behind it, something more than just them two having a match in some way, shape, or form, which did lead into their match, which was an extremely good match, but by both of them. Again, they put on a great performance. They do. And they pretty much do that every time they get in the ring together. They do a really good job. Obviously, they didn't want to put Jericho into the world title match, and they continued on with his feud with Fandango, and he actually did something a little bit later on in the night too. So that was a good way of trying to keep the Fandango storyline going by having the music interrupt the match itself with Chris Jericho, and obviously giving Dolph Ziggler some relevance being in there and trying to promote a little bit more of that world title match, because they didn't use Alberto Del Rio and Jack Swagger at all on the show. So you needed to have have Dolph Ziggler on the show in some way, shape, or form to put some emphasis behind that title match going at Extreme Rules. So all in all, again, really good match there. Next came Cody Rhodes and Sweet Tea, or Tensai in this case. Once again, this was just continuation from earlier on. Don't know, one of those aspects you don't know why the feud's still going on, but it kind of still is. The match itself, again, was actually an okay match, and I keep forgetting how good Tensai actually is in the ring. He can pull off some really athletic and some really interesting moves in the ring, and wish he would be able to do it more often. So hopefully we'll see a little bit more out of that. I do think Tensai, Albert, Sweet Tea, whatever you want to call him, is actually really good in the ring, and hopefully they'll allow him to show that off with him teaming up with Bruce Clay and everything. So on to the next thing, which was actually a promo backstage with Team Hell No, Daniel Bryan and Kane, talking about the match with Undertaker, and talk about the six-man tag match where they would team up with the Undertaker versus the Shield. And honestly, I felt the promo itself was extremely good. Just how Daniel Bryan is like, I have talking about how he had diagrams of how to defeat the Shield and everything, and wanted to show it to the Undertaker, all that aspect, and of course Kane basically saying, don't do that. It's the Undertaker, just go type deal. And then of course both of them got attacked after the promo, and made it seem like they were going to go with almost a 1-on-3 handicap match with Undertaker versus the Shield. But eventually, after the initial attack, Daniel Bryan and Kane come out, and the six-man tag match actually starts up, which again was a really good match. Just the way that the Shields actually worked inside all their six-man tag matches coming into the actual WWE area. They've done a great job in all their matches. This was no different here. Of course, you have Daniel Bryan, Kane, great workers. Undertaker, great worker in there as well. I'm glad that they're still putting over the Shield here. I don't think that their time is really done yet, and it's a nice way of them continuing on showing their dominance in some way, shape, or form. This basically led to a few promos backstage, one by Mick Foley and then one by Ryback, which would eventually lead into a confrontation at the end of the show, which I'll talk about. Both the promos that they did backstage, I felt were actually relatively good. And Ryback's coming off better as a heel as the weeks come along. So I'm actually liking where they're going with Ryback as a heel. Next was actually Big E Langston and Zack Ryder. Nothing more than a squash match, really. Basically a good way of showing Big E Langston's power, but nothing special, nothing really all that great there. Next after that was Fandango and William Regal. The match itself, again, was another quick match. The last hour, the matches became really quick and not really all that good in my mind in that sense. But then again, quick matches usually aren't all that great to begin with. What made the Fandango match with William Regal more interesting was the continuation from early on, where Fandango's music interrupted Jericho. Jericho interrupted Fandango's celebration after the match, and this was just another good way of them continuing that feud in some way, shape, or form. I'm still on the fence with Fandango's character. Hopefully, we'll see a little bit more from him. That I said it on the SmackDown review. I actually liked the segment he did on SmackDown. So hopefully, they'll continue on with something like that. And the match that they put on Extreme Rules, or whenever they do have their feud ending match, will be a lot better than the one that they put on at WrestleMania. Maybe I'll change my thoughts on how Fandango is, or my thoughts on the character in general. This and then this one actually led into a Divas Battle Royal. Nothing much to say there. Really quick match again. It looks like they're finally going with the whole AJ Caitlyn storyline, which it seemed like they were going to be doing right before WrestleMania, and now they're kind of just throwing it back out there with AJ winning the Battle Royal and everything in that sense. So we'll see where that storyline can go, and see if it can actually be any good. So let's just see where that one actually goes. This basically led to how the show ended tonight, which was the Mick Foley and Ryback in-ring confrontation. And the promo that the two of them did in the ring was just, they did just a great job. Mick Foley's always been really good on the mic and getting over his point and kind of just feeling like he was lecturing Ryback on what he should be doing, or how he had been doing about, how Mick Foley had been knocked down in the past and how many times he's gotten back up and all that sense, and talking about how Ryback had been, kept getting knocked down by the Shield, and he's kind of just coming up with excuses type deal. I actually liked where they went with that. Ryback came off as a great heel in his promo with Mick Foley, which, eventually it looked like it was going into physical confrontation. Of course, John Cena comes out there, Foley gets out, and it looks like and then the Shield comes out, which made it seem, initially what it seemed like it was going to be was like a reverse role from the week before, where Ryback gets attacked this time, and John Cena kind of just leaves him out to the wolves, and that's how it looked like it was going to start. But eventually John Cena chases them off, and then gives Ryback the AA for a little bit of redemption after that. I find it interesting. Like I said, the promo with Foley and Ryback was extremely well done and just great to watch. I found it interesting that they actually would have Cena, help Ryback in the end. And of course, he did give him the AA afterwards. But it just felt weird that he would help out Ryback after Ryback had left him for pretty much left him out to the wolves the week before. The other thing that I'm actually liking about Ryback is the aspect of him using the Super Cena tagline, where the internet communities always use the Super Cena tagline because Cena always gets knocked down but gets back up type moments, always has the comeback in the match, the 5 moves of doom and all that aspect. So I like how they're actually working that in there as well. So overall, I felt the show was actually a fairly good show. Outside of the really quick matches that happened in basically the last hour of the show, it was a really good show overall. You got some really good matches in there, especially with Chris Jericho and Dolph Ziggler, and the match with the 6-man tag match with the Shield, Daniel, Bryan Kane, and The Undertaker. So overall, good show this week. And this is my review for Monday Night Raw. I thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.